Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy that I'm here to speak about my very personal experience as a writer. First, I have to say thank you to Amin, who invited me and provided, I think, a very important part of this program. So, as Reza rightly mentioned, I'm going to speak about my own experience about home in my own place. And I entitled my presentation, as you can see, Iranian Home, Iranian Identity on Stage, extremely private, extremely public. One, this is my home. You can find my exact address of my home on the screen. This is my home, my second body, where my first body, the somatic one, lives in, a place like a mother's womb, protecting me from the world outside. When the spring storms happen in Tehran, I run to my home. When I cannot tolerate the city, I harbor here. When it is polluted, I harbor here. These are all a complete instance of this idea. When the people's feeling of living in a dangerous world increases, it is more probable for them to protect their home as a stronghold which they can harbor to. This is my home, where every inch of it is a matter of choices based on my identity. The curtains outline, wallpapers, plates on the wall, furnitures, sofas, Marc Chagall's painting, The Keys, Taj Mahal's photo, my mother's childhood picture, an old Russian vase, Japanese paper cranes, Persian rugs, messy library, white kitchen, a place in which I take off my mask, where I stand up versus my outer images. In my home, I become myself. I give myself and the others special messages regarding my very own self, a place for messages from the soul which move from the self towards the objective symbol and so alike the revelation of one's nature. This is my home. Whenever something has been banned by the law and makes no sense to me, I harbor here. This is my home, in which I pass through the limitations and I cross the red lines. This is my home, and in a very close dynamism with the outer environment, it entitles me to widen my human experiences as much as I desire. This is my home, where my play's ideas flew through it, where its walls and objects are my inspiration to write. Actually, every person's home is a representation of his private life story. Walking and searching in one's home is like to read the narrative of her personal life story, a very unrevealed and dramatic story of how one covers the jams he doesn't like with frames, covers the unsightly windows with curtains, empties the crowded corners, and fills up the empty ones. I have a story for every inch of this house. This is my house, where the past flows in it, where the objects, spaces, walls, and doors take me to the past. Where my memories are recalled. Home is a box that memories never leave it, and this connection with the past depends the identifying feature of home. We can think of home as a place to preserve connection between our past and present, but it's also a place where we must continually reconstruct these connections. This is my home, an Iranian home, and by Iranian home, I don't specifically mean geographically, because a house placing in Iran's geography in the big cities and especially in Tehran recalls special meanings and functions which are different from the most places of all over the world. So if I am supposed to get to my place space from the home's personal space, I have no choice but to pass through the path of Iranian home. Meanings of home in my mind. The mother's womb and the second body, a place in which we find our own identity, where connects to the past and the present, where the lacks and absence of the outer world are being compensated, where it protects us from the existing dangers outside. 2. Persian home, seeking the Persian identity in Persian home. In its traditional and ideal state, Iranian home had a specifically unique feature. A traditional home had to be a combination of a garden and its surrounding rooms, which, like 1001 Nights stories, had path to one another. The very basis of the mansion was to forsake from the outside world and peace in a private haven, and that was what home metaphorically provided for its residences. A haven designed in which whoever was more intimate to the residence could have entered into the more hidden parts of it. In another word, the house's guests could have just seen the entrance or get the permission to go into the depth of the home based on the intimacy and remoteness to the residents of the house. Today, in spite of modernism, economical issues, and the rush of crowd to Tehran, which made apartments out of Iranian house and widened the city horizontally, it still has kept the main ancient archetypical feature. One may say that nowadays, we hardly can recall the archetypical ideal concept of home in Tehran and other big cities because, for example, it doesn't have a basement, nor does it have a roof, because the elevator has destroyed all the supernatural concept of the stairs as a possibility to ascend the skies. And finally, home in this definition has turned into towers of boxes. In Paris, there is no house. The big city's residents live in towers of boxes. The houses have no root or something visualizable to dream. The skyscrapers void a basement. The elevators act the principle of going up the stairs to skies, as if living up there near the skies has no value anymore. But as I mentioned, the very cultural characteristics of Iranian home is still existing. I'm speaking about contemporary time. Iranian home still is extremely private place for us. We still try to strongly separate inside from the outside in which we don't feel safe and comfortable. We have a super private life which doesn't match to the power's will. And for keeping this very private life, we keep our home very private as well. Safety locks, doors with remote control, windows with layers of curtains, and so on and so forth, all are the signs of our effort to keep our home super private. My home provides me all the abundant needs in the society. My home is an other to the limited outer environment, and because comparing to most of the other countries, the social limitations in Iran are still more, therefore, I have a home which handles all these limitations by itself. My home is the other to the world outside, the place where the outer environment's absences find a place for itself. And that is why, in the absence of a pub in Tehran, a home pub appears. In the absence of cinemas which show the day's international movies, home cinemas appear. In the absence of nightclub, home nightclub appear. The repressed soul of Dionysus, which the world outside cannot respond to, appears in Iranian home. This very connection to Dionysus is enough to think that a home in Iran has a protesting and rebellious soul. 3. Extremely private place on extremely public place. Home is the main location in many of my plays, actually. To me, homes become alive creatures and narrate their own stories alongside the characters. In my plays, houses are not just a location for dramatic stories to take place, but a kind of connection, a kind of condition, an identity condition, a contesting condition, an archetype of past, memories, and recollection condition. Perhaps if I did not live in Iran and if I were a playwright from any other part of the world, like Belgium, then this home would not be as meaningful as it is now for me. I am reviewing a very brief section of Western theater. More than 1 century back, when Nora in the doll house slammed the door and left the house, the sound of the door slamming was as if the house's dream was gone. And it was a suggestion for the upcoming century, 20th century, to experience the outer world, as if for Nora, home was a place that social life stopped in, where the identity was lost in its safety. Some place like heaven, which its drama has been gone. Some place to sleep, bath, and perhaps eating a bite. Widening locations like cafe, pub, kindergarten, restaurant, and public libraries has took away most of the former usages of house in Western countries. As a result, the Western identity in general words mostly also can be appeared outside of the home in public spaces and public places. You rightly, explained that what is the difference between places and spaces. But for me, the Iranian Nora hasn't slammed the door yet. This doesn't mean inactivity of women in social events, not at all. It means the dream, drama, and magic of home has not been finished yet. I ask myself, what is the reason I am interested in home in my plays, and I find several answers. First, recalling all the archetype concepts of home which consist memory, past, and historical Iranian identity. Second, recalling what specifically makes a home Iranian, where a Persian self appears with no mask and no phobia. Where the Iranian home is willing to feel all the absence of the places in public environment, where home is transformed to a place that is willing to make up for the absence of social spaces, where home is an alternative for the outer social environment. In this way, presenting home in Iran's theater scenes roles more than a performing place. Home on theater stage could connect two far points together, the private point to very public point. Hence, a play willing to picture a home on a stage confronts a paradoxical situation, a private home on a public scene, a private home on a public scene, extremely public, extremely private. Let's go further and say an official stage will change its function by representing a home, though it depends how much the home marches on a stage and how much it could own it. In better words, how much could it make the audience believe that this is an Iranian home which hidden from his or her eyes? The first play of mine, which turned home to the character named Sleeping in an Empty Cup, which I wrote it in 2001, which took place in a Gajarian home. You can see some of the pictures of these kinds of homes. A house with more than 100 years in which a young, new fashion couple live in it. They will be the inheritors of the house if Agha Amme, their very old aunt, dies. No one knows how old is she, but they all know she has to be very old, almost as old as the house. The man wishes her to die, but the woman doesn't, because for both of them, her death means inheriting the house, splitting the share, and separating. The man wants to separate, but the woman truly wishes to live with him. The play begins with Agha Amme's death, but soon enough, Agha Amme will be alive again and gradually turn younger and younger and younger. As she gets young and younger, it seems that the old house goes back to the foretime as well. The house, the woman, and the land transforms to one state. Especially when in the middle of the play, we realize that once Agha Amme was a modernist woman raped by her brother-in-law and has been imprisoned in the basement since that time. There, she gave birth to her wrongful child, and no one has a clue that this family's race, including this new fashion man and woman, all goes back to that wrongful child, as if the house and the land were raped at the same time. The basement of the house is the secrecy of all these secrets. But even though the Qajarian house's door has been opened to the audience and they could see the hidden secrets through the house, still basement is hidden from them. Here was designed regarding the basement's stairs to be revealed whenever the rapist man desired, and whenever he didn't, it was hidden all over again. The house was terrified by the man, as the woman was too. The scene will have a magical feature by staging this kind of a house. We believe that the basement, which all the rapes and secrets took place in, is under the very same theater scene, just a few steps from us, but we still are the other to this house, unable to save the woman from the basement. This play wasn't possible except in the house, because it is just this place that people took off their masks, revealed their true aggressively rapist, seducer, and melancholic self. The house in Sleeping in an Empty Cup has both secretive and mysterious personality and functions as a mother's womb as well, where the characters go back to their fetal condition. Also, the house in Sleeping in an Empty Cup recalls the past with all its dimensions. In the play called Sheklak, or I can translate it to Grimace, maybe, which I wrote it 2 years later, 2 years after Sleeping in an Empty Cup, home is also an animate creature. Even though here we stay just in the yard and do not enter inside, house and history connect to this play. The first feature of home is its harboring characteristic. A boy from a traditional family alongside with a street girl, they both together, harbor in a tumble-down house from the coup d'etat's time, actually. So it is the early Pahlavi Aval dynasty, I think. The girl is pregnant, and her addicted brother is after them. Besides, the outer environment is seriously unsafe because of the students' political actions. They are homeless and it is inevitable for them to harbor to this tumble-down place. But the old residents of the house who have been killed in this place rise from the pool, and there the story begins. Whose house is this? The old residents or the current ones? Afterwards, the child is born, and he is a stranger, a strange creature. The child is old, and all the history's fatigue is on his shoulders. But the young boy and girl decide to stay in this ghost house. To me, converting the formal scene to the secrecy of this runaway girl and boy could have been a special possibility. The formal theater scene was supposed to turn to the most informal possible place, to a tumble-down yard. I mean, if home is revealing things by itself which may have been contrary to the official powerful image of being Iranian, now the tumble-down yard of a house is even more emphasizing this feature. The boy and the girl are both the others to the city, who even don't have a home. The tumble-down home is also the other to the city. A place remained destroyed and forgotten. To the power, Iran's contemporary history is also an other to the history, a place where there is no need to get to its details. The late residents of this house are also the others to their own time being. All the others of the formal environment are gathered together in a very informal place, actually. Therefore, left the scene to the forgotten and abandoned place. The audience are in the neighbor's shoes. Audience will be called for judgment to say who is the real resident of this house. They can't say anything. They can't judge. They want to say something, but as an audience, they have no voice. There was another play that I wrote in 2008 named Home, which to me was the explosion of the meaning of home, a home which was shrinking day by day, as if home was an animate creature, which its space was getting closer and closer in a night when all the residents of the house were willing to leave this place or this home. The house in the play called Home is an apartment exactly like what I live in. The scenes in the play are its actual rooms, the kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, roof, and hallways. Everyone realizes that the house is shrinking. The family's father, who is carrying up his beloved ghost from the window, realizes that the walls have been shortened. The woman in the kitchen, who wants to run away with her favorite series character, realizes that the kitchen has been shrinking. The young girl, who wants to have an abortion in the bathroom, realizes that she doesn't fit in bathroom's bathtub. And the boy, who wants to run away from the roof to a Western country, realizes that the walls are shorter than ever. In the end, the house has been turned to a maquette, and the characters have been left outside trying to reach to a character who has been lost in the shrunken house. Iranian home in this play is so tired of carrying so many usages and messages. It is tired to be inside and outside at the same time. Home is tired of keeping all the secrets of all the family members. It is tired because its bedroom is a bedroom and is a hotel at the same time. Its bathroom is a bathroom and a hospital at the same time. And its kitchen is a kitchen and a pub at the same time. And its roof is a roof and an airport at the same time. So the home is so tired. I think getting shrunken is part of home's reaction to this tiredness. I wanted for this play to be performed someplace out of the official scene of theater, in a real house. I wanted the audience to move around and seek one room to another, but it was difficult to get permission for doing that, and the director did not want it to perform as an underground theater. Therefore, it was performed in a hall in City Theater. An official hall, which I believe badly affected the play's true soul. Even though the stage designer tried to picture the house's room on the stage, but still the audience were sitting on comfortable seats while the rooms appeared in front of them. And this was what I really didn't want for this play. This is a picture of the kitchen, and this is the mother of the family, and he is the lover of the mother of family, who is Indian Siri character. My other play, named We Are Watched, which I wrote in 2010, is one of the other victims of official theater scene. From the beginning, it was supposed to be performed in a specific location, in a house where the audience could observe it by handy camera and headphones from the house in front. This play was actually based on the concept of seeking, and as it's actually based on as its name reveals, it is about the absence of privacy in the middle-class homes after happenings of 2009. In the first episode, the apartment of a young couple is being secretly watched from ahead. In the second episode, a woman came to secretly watch the home ahead and find out whether her husband is cheating on her or not. In the third episode, a man whose career is to produce cryptographic movies and photos is meeting with husband of the woman from the second episode in one of the apartments. My vision was performing the play in a house like this, what you can see on the screen. This is Ekbatan, one of the most famous collections in Iran. My vision was performing the play in the house like this, but at the end, scenes like this were performed which absolutely couldn't deliver the scene of being under someone's look or seeking to the audience. The ordinary scene invaded the play, and it seemed that after years of effort getting the permission for this play, performing in a hall as wrong and inappropriate as this was the best way to evaporate the play's soul. My other play, Hayula Khani, I translated in Reading the Monster, but I'm not sure this is a good translation or not. It's very difficult to translate this expression to English. Was written in 2001. The play took place in a house which I didn't know it well, as I didn't know the play's characters at first. The play was the story of a woman who tries to censor a book instead of her husband, who has gone to coma. During the play, she falls in love with the book's content and its writer as well, and so couldn't censor it anymore. The location of the play was a house belonging to a traditional and religious family, a house which its real version could have been like this. This place was so different from the middle-class house which I knew and I grew up in. This was not a home that I could call it as the other of the official definition of power. This was a home with no secret. But I wanted the house to gradually turn to the woman's nightmare. I wanted it to be the mirror of woman's doubt about all she believes. The fanatic father-in-law wants to keep her in the house and banning her from leaving. And exactly from this part, the house turns to a location in which the nightmares take place. To a place against itself, to an unsafe place. Red pencils chips, a symbol for censorship for me, fall to the ground. The television turns off and on by itself, and the writer's voice resonated all over the house. I wanted to turn home to a frightening prison. In one part of the play, the woman says she has always unwillingly aborted her children because she has always made love with her husband in this small house under the look of her fanatic father-in-law. I wanted the house in the play, Hayula Khani, to be an unsafe place, a womb disabled to carry the fetus, a place like public places with the same amount of prohibitions, a place lacking the past. But the director got to the result that Chahar Suhal, one of the most well-known theater halls in Iran, does not have the possibility of performing a home like this. So he made a strange decision, creating a space so abstract and reading the scene direction instead of performing them on the stage. The director's smart choice, I think, was a protest to the limitations of the limited space of performing hall. Last words. Indoor is out of the control of power, outdoor is under the control of power. Theater is somewhere in between. Indoor is out of the control of power, outdoor is under the control of power. Theater is somewhere in between. Somewhere what is washed by power physically and at the same time with making the possibility of interpretation can't be completely under the control. This is the point that makes theater as an extremely public place in which an extremely private place like home can appear as part of its meanings. This makes the presentation of home on the stage as a challenging job in Iran. I ask myself several questions about my own challenges. Could I get closer to my characters by showing their homes? Could I show the essence of their identity by transforming a public space to a private place? Could I break the authority of theaters as official public spaces with showing private places? Didn't I want to show the more private corners of my character's home if I could, like the basement in Sleeping in an Empty Cup or inside the home in Sheklak or Grimace? I wish I could yes to all these questions, but I can't. I think I think in challenging of home and sometimes in challenging of the home and theater, sometimes home is the winner and sometimes theater is. How theater can be the winner in this challenging situation with its limitations, its laws, and whatever prevent me from speaking about the unofficial voice of Iranian culture. It has been a while after Hayula Khani that I haven't been back home. My latest plays locations are airport, road, madhouse, and Trappist clinic. I haven't been back home yet, but I know for sure that I will back home to this meaningful place. I will be back home. All of us will, sooner or later. This is inevitable. Thank you.